First, live, local. This is Fox 12 Now.
Hello everyone, Greg Nibbler with Fox 12 Now. Appreciate you joining us wherever you're watching, whether that's on YouTube or via our apps. Thanks for being here with us. We get to talk about a lot of things on this show, but right now we're talking about something that pretty much affected everybody here in Portland, or at least we're well aware of it on Tuesday, and that has to do with the giant apartment fire that happened on the corner of Southwest Taylor and 14th in downtown Portland. Clearly, this was huge. A huge impact just on the city that day, but this is a much bigger impact on all the people that lived in this building and that surrounding area. The latest word on this right now is that the building may be collapsing. You know, this is Thursday. It sounds like it's on the verge of collapse. We don't have any other update on that other than that's what it seems to be. But the real bottom line here is that this affected a lot of people who lived in that building, who are now without a home, without a house, without an apartment. Blanchet House is an organization that helps a lot of people in this city, and they put out this tweet. This was yesterday, talking about just really what kind of an impact this has for everybody who was in there. This was a lot of low-income people who were living in there. They were able to be in this apartment, and now that is gone. What happens? What's going to take place for them next? You know, what are the steps that happen after a tragedy like this? And I wanted to bring in an expert and somebody who we were talking to about this, and after seeing this tweet, joining us right now, we've got Scott Kerman, who is the executive director of Blanchet House. And Scott, thank you very much for taking some time to be here with us. You know, I know you have a lot of very important things that you're doing. Appreciate you joining us. I guess just to start, because I want to talk about the fire and what's affected there, but can you give us just a little bit of an explainer on Blanchet House and what it is that you do?
Yeah. Thank you, Greg. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. For 71 years, Blanchet House has served meals and provided long-term transitional housing to people who are houseless and people who are in low-income housing. We have an operation in the Old Town District. We serve breakfast, lunch, and dinner to anyone who needs a meal or wants a meal 6 days a week, and then we run transitional housing. And so what brings our attention to this horrible fire, and I'm just so thankful, I think we all are, that nobody was seriously injured, and thankfully, of course, nobody perished in this fire. But we have people who've gone through our housing program who have found really good housing after our program at this apartment building. And in fact, we had two former program participants who were living there and are now displaced. So this is an impact that's going to affect a lot of people in our community, and we're really feeling that in our own community today at Blanchet House.
So talking about Blanchet House and just with this particular unit, this apartment complex, so how many people were living in there, and can you talk to us about the process of how that actually came to be?
Well, in terms of the complex, I believe it has 60 units, and you know, a lot of that, if not all of it, was, you know, I think what we would characterize as affordable housing. And so let's just focus on that for a second. You know, this community, which needs every affordable housing unit and apartment that it can, has now lost 60. And, you know, that's going to be a real loss for a lot of people in this community. And in particular, we had two people who were just recently in our program who found housing there. And the thing to really emphasize is it's so hard for people to find decent, safe, dignified, affordable housing in this community. And even where that housing exists and it's affordable, there can be other barriers. A lot of the folks that come to our program, let's just face it, they have bad credit history. They have bad, if any, rental history because they've been homeless for a good part of their lives, perhaps, or maybe they were recently incarcerated. Many of them have criminal records, and these can many times be barriers into housing because you can't make it through the application process. The May Apartments was one location where folks with that kind of background could still qualify, and so it was a place that we looked to, our housing team looked to place people, and so it's a real tragedy now that that's no longer an option.
I mean, that's absolutely something that I was unaware of, and I'm sure most people were, that this was that kind of a building to provide that time and time again, no matter what survey or poll you look at, whether it's houseless population, affordable housing, the lack of housing, it's always, all of those are huge issues. Not just here in Portland, but I've seen it across the state as well. So to lose something like that, that is a really devastating impact. I mean, like you said, thank goodness, nobody lost their lives in it, but losing the housing is a tremendous obstacle now that has to be faced. So with that in the community, is there enough? Are there 60 units somewhere that could make up this difference? Or is it just that inventory is gone and that's it? There's nowhere else to make that up?
Well, the short answer is, as we're talking today, no. I mean, that the 60 units are not just going to magically appear. And so, there's a lot of emphasis right now, especially with the budgets that are under consideration. The state, the county, the city, affordable housing is, if not the number one issue for these budgets and what our leaders want to focus on, it's right up there at the top. And so this is going to hurt, right? And then, of course, we have maybe 100 people or so. That's what I read, who have now lost their housing, and not just their housing. It's not that they got evicted; they lost everything, right? So, in talking to the two individuals that we know who were living there, right? I mean, they've lost their clothing, they've lost their possessions. They need to start from scratch, and that's a tragedy under normal circumstances. If this had happened, heaven forbid to you or to me, but I'm going to guess, you and I, we have resources we can rely on. We've got friends and family and a community that we could get ready support from. A lot of people don't have that.
Yeah.
They don't have that many dominoes in their life between them and the street. And here, at least for the two guys that we know, put a lot of work into getting their life back on track. And this must feel like a sucker punch of the worst kind. And so we're doing what we can to support them. I do want to emphasize, because I just learned about this before we went on air, that the Red Cross is really taking the lead on helping victims from this fire. So I don't want people out there to, you can donate to Blanchet House if you want to support our programs, but we're not spearheading the disaster relief for people who've been affected by this fire. We're going to do what we can to certainly support the people who are in our program because we have a personal relationship with them. But I think the Red Cross, it sounds to me, is the agency that is going to broadly help people who've been affected by this fire.
Well, I think, that's great. Actually, I kind of want to get into that too. I do want to talk more about Blanchet House and what you do and certainly emphasize your programs. I mean, I will say I have, you mentioned, if it happened to you or it has happened to me. I actually did have that happen. This was a long time ago. I lost all that stuff, but I was thankful because I did have resources. I could go somewhere. So I can't imagine, for people in this situation where it's starting from scratch already and then you build something up, gone again, and having to try to figure that out. That's, it's a very traumatic experience, and that's great that you mentioned the Red Cross is out there helping. Are there any other organizations that for, I guess let's ask this, and I don't know if you have an answer for this or not, but for somebody like this, this just happened. They've lost everything. They don't have a lot of resources to go to. What do they do? What do you do? What can you do?
Well, I mean, that's a really complicated question because it's there are a lot of great nonprofits in our community who are providing a variety of services. Many of those are targeted to specific communities. And so, 211 can be a resource to help find some targeted help. I think certainly, I think of Catholic Charities does a lot of great work in housing and housing relief. So does Central City Concern. For women who've been affected, there are many organizations in town that really focus on helping women or those who identify. But it can be a lot. And if you've lost everything and you're displaced, I'm hoping that the county and the Red Cross are going to mobilize those resources and bring it to the people who've been affected, so that it's not left to their own devices to sort of hunt for it, because it can be a challenge under the best of circumstances.
Absolutely, yeah, and access to even that information like that could be a challenge. Let's switch gears and talk specifically about what your organization does, because I think that's important too. We've worked with you a lot here on KPTV as far as talking to you about this, but for anybody who doesn't know, can you just explain the organization a little bit more? I know you gave a little bit of the history earlier, but kind of talk about what you do now.
Well, so what we do now, we essentially have three programs. We have our meal service, and that's, you can sort of see the space behind me, and you got some video on the screen now. And we just serve hot prepared meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We serve it restaurant style in a way. People come in, they sit at tables for four. There's a good shot of them. We have volunteers who go around and serve plated dishes, walk around serving beverages, bussing tables. It's a real hospitable environment. We have peer support services during our meals. We have other groups that come in and do outreach. You just had a moment ago, you had an image of Multnomah County's harm relief program, handing out Narcan to people, because we just need everybody to have Narcan with them on the street right now, because fentanyl overdoses is a serious disaster in our community right now. And then we hope that for many people, our meal service is a gateway into our transitional housing program. So at this location in Old Town, we can house up to 45 men. We provide long-term supportive transitional housing. It goes anywhere from 9 to 18 months, depending on how many phases in the program a person goes through. And it's really designed to help people get back on their feet, have stability where they're living. They don't have to worry about food, clothing. We provide medical care. We provide other kinds of support and counseling services. Give them an opportunity to find a job in the community. Maybe they want to go back to school. Maybe they want to do some training. But it's designed to help them get back on their feet. And a big part of that is finding them housing, finding them a good place to live after their time with us. And that is becoming increasingly difficult, not simply because there's not a lot of it available. That is certainly a problem. But again, because often there can be barriers that exist. And we're about giving people a second chance. Sometimes it's their third chance, their fourth chance, their fifth chance at getting their life back on track. But we can only get them so far, right, across the bridge. We really need to create a community that's invested in giving people with a lot of, hard time in their life. And maybe they haven't always been angels. But if they're at a place where they really want to turn themselves around, we've got to make it easier. And then we have something like this. And again, it just must feel like a real gut punch to the people who were living there. And just, one thing I think about, one thing that we're challenged by is, we serve a lot of people who life hasn't been fair to. They've experienced a lot of trauma. Some of them have experienced a lot of abuse and violence in their life. It's why so many of them have turned to drink or drugs in order to dull that pain. And, they feel like in a lot of time in their life, they've been disappointed, they've been lied to, they've been cheated, and they come to believe that they're not worth anything, that they don't have any purpose, that they're no good. And it's hard for them to accept when good things happen to them. And good things happen to them when they're with us at Blanchet House. But they'll say to me over and over again, Scott, this place is too good for me. You all are too good for me. I don't deserve this. And we put a lot of effort into saying, no, you're wrong. You really do deserve this. You are worthy of good things, and you should be proud of what you're achieving. And so I imagine for anybody who's gone through homelessness and the road to recovery, if they've been displaced by this fire, it just must feel to them like, see, this is what happens to me. Bad things just happen to me. I have, the only luck I have is bad. So I'm really concerned about not just their physical displacement, but what a blow this must be to their mental well-being, to their sense of self, and hope that people don't give up as a result of this. For anyone watching who is hearing this, I mean, that's heartbreaking and very true. For a lot of what could be happening to them. What are some things that
somebody at home watching right now could do to help or assist in any way?
Well, I think I would steer people to the Red Cross website and look for their information about how to support. And if people want to support Blanchet House in general, our meal and our housing program, they could go to our website at blanchethouse.org. Speaking for Blanchet House, we don't receive any public funding from the city or the state or the county. So everything that we do because there's a lot of generosity in the community. And whether you're donating clothing or food or money, it all makes a difference. And one of the ways it makes a difference is, again, people we serve, sometimes they'll ask, how do you all do this? Where do you get the money from? Who donate, where does the clothing and the care kits and the sack lunches come from? And we say it just comes from people in the community. And they're really affected by that because, again, they don't feel like they matter, or at least they feel like life has told them that they don't matter. So when they find out that there are people in the community who will spend their time and maybe their treasure to support Blanchet House, to help these folks out, it means a lot to them. In fact, I think it means more to them than the food and the clothing and anything else that we provide. Just the idea that there are people out there who still have a lot of compassion, and I understand. Right. This has not been an easy time for our community. And there's a lot of frustration and even a lot of anger right now in the Portland area, whether it's about crime or graffiti or homelessness or drugs. But it's important that we not necessarily blame, people that we're trying to serve, that we understand that this has not always been a choice for them. And so we just, please just maintain that high level of compassion and heart that has really distinguished the Portland community for so many years.
Scott, thank you very, very much for joining us here today. I mean, I know you have a lot going on. I know you're working on a lot of these things, and I think this is a really important discussion that we've had here too, just to communicate that, what really goes on when something like this happens. Because it's really easy to just see, there's an apartment fire, no one was hurt, that's great, but there's so much more fallout from that and what can happen. And, thank you. Thanks for being here to talk about this. Thanks for doing what you do, and thanks for joining us here today.
Yeah, thanks for bringing me in. I appreciate it.
All right, Scott, very, very thankful to have you on here today. So that's Scott Kerman, Executive Director of Blanchet House, and talking about, just what happens after a fire like this and what happens to all those people. And so very great discussion to have on here. And this is, again, if you're just joining us for the first time, this is Fox 12 Now. I'm Greg Nibbler. These are the kind of discussions that we get to have on this show. This is a longer form show for Fox 12 Oregon, so we get to have in-depth interviews about all kinds of different topics. So sometimes like this, sometimes other things, could be events, could be interviews of any nature, really, that can happen on this show. And so thank you for joining us. Thanks for being a part of this. You can always send us an email as well. You can send us an email to fox12oregon at kptv.com and let us know if there's something that you think we could cover on here. Maybe it's an interview that you think should happen, or an event, or whatever it is, an issue that should be talked about. We can do that on here, and just like we do with everything else at Fox 12 Oregon. So I appreciate you joining us. I'm live every weekday at 1 p.m. Pacific, so you can join in and watch us. Tomorrow we're going to be talking about wildfires and what some of the kind of soonish danger that's already happened with that, so things to watch out for. So we'll be discussing that at 1 p.m. and a lot more as well. So thanks for joining us. Remember where you're watching us to come back right here again. I'm Greg Nibbler for Fox 12 Now. Talk to you later.